How will they know?
I'm going to tell them.
No! Hello, guys.
Welcome back.
She's ill.
No, I'm
Tummy
fine.
feels
I'm
weird.
fine. We're fine.
We're persevering.
Yeah. We're perspirating.
So in the last thing, we went through and improvised the way in which we
PS'd education.
And
I'm just gonna lift that for a second
to make sure it doesn't stay down.
Yeah, it's not like overheating and dying.
Mm-hmm. And so now we're going to try and figure out how we can take all these problems, take all these solutions, and cram them into about a minute. Let's see how we do.
If we can, yeah. Do you think
There's a lot of stuff.
Is that unreasonable?
Is that unreasonable?
Do you think that'll be okay? Or is there like... I'm just going to put it on the floor over here if that's okay.
I'll put it on the floor in the corner so it's not buzzing. Please.
We won't be able to pick this up, I don't think. I doubt it. And I think it's because it's overheating because it was against the leather. Mm-hmm. Oh, Jesus.
All right.
Do you want some water? Do you want to quickly do the draining and not fun and see if we have a solution to that? Though that's a really big boy. Mm-hmm. And then elevator pitch doesn't have to cover everything that we've got here. But let's see if we can order it in the solutions at least.
Like doability. Or tacticality.
Like, from the smallest to the largest, from the least, from the most tangible to the
That's it,
most
tangible, not tacticality.
Oh. Okay, so do you want to make it bigger? I always go the wrong way. Okay, all right. So this, we're not ready to build this yet, but it's a tangible idea, but it's...
Like it's been done before, you know, where it's like, okay, we're going to put you into groups.
Yeah. So yeah, we could start off as one thing and then go to like something else. And that's the simulated game. These are creating miniature scenario based like is it World of Warcraft where it's like a story and then you have to interact with it. So something like that, which doesn't require an actual digital game world. You can kind of do it with cards. Exactly. So that's quite cool. So we can... So that starts... That's pretty high up. That's... I'm going to call this tangible. Unable... Oh, update, find relevant subjects today. I think that's very tangible. Because we just need a list of topics that we want to focus on or we think that people should focus on. Or we think are worth considering, at least.
Like we can get a list of... we can get a list of professions that were popular in the 60s.
Compare
them now.
Yeah.
See which ones are shrinking the most. That kind of vibe.
Alright, so let's write that down just so for jobs. Compare jobs in 60s versus jobs today, and like the ratios and stuff. Okay.
Try to get an understanding of why kids don't enjoy a particular topic.
That's not that tangible right now, but we could figure out
doable once we have a thing going.
Yeah.
So it's easily applicable once we've got going, but it's not tangible right now.
Okay, so
no T. Games are, depending on the games, tangible. or not tangible, depending on the game. Encourage exploration of subject matter.
Again, once you have something, you can introduce stuff.
Yeah.
Before that, all we can do is create a list of all subject matter, but that's not very tangible right now. So I'm going to say not tangible. It's a big word. Try to give them an understanding of why they should. That's very tangible. That is very tangible. We could make an animation about that.
Try to give them an understanding of why they should learn or want to learn.
So we've already addressed that here, kind of, when I asked you, what do you think the purpose of education is, and then try to we could animate that. That would be give them a narrative, multiple narratives. So I think that's pretty tangible. I think that's the first one we talk about.
Interesting. Okay.
In my opinion, because that's the basis of it. Otherwise, why would you do it unless you understand it? The gamification makes the learning easier, but why would you want to be there in the first place? Simulate the important topics. Again, it's not tangible.
No, it's not tangible right now. Okay, so we've got 2, 3, and 8.
So you've
and
got
it sounds
1.
Like 8 is your favorite.
I kind of like this as 2 because it's like, why are you learning? What are we
should
learning?
you be learning?
How do we do it? Right? And the others are kind of not tangible. But then we can talk about gameplay in this, and then we can do the World of Warcraft type thing. It doesn't have to be World of Warcraft. I don't know games, and I've only seen it on The Big Bang Theory where they're it's a narrative and you get choices. Okay, and then this is kind of all encompassing. And 4, because games address a lot of these.
Not fun.
Draining. Yeah.
Lack of play.
Yeah. So I think we should focus on the tangible right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So, all right.
So 8, 3, 2.
Okay. So of the problems, do we want to list all of them or do we want to pick some? Because draining and not fun are very similar. I think we can get rid of not fun because we've got draining. Dated we can keep, teaches you to not question. And I think narrow objectives is kind of very broad. It's not in, I don't think we're saying it right. I think we could just say there's a heavy focus on exam results. But again, that doesn't automatically seem like a bad thing when you first hear it. Kind of requires explanation, so maybe we get rid of it. For an elevator pitch, you want to pick and choose. So I'd say get rid of this. Though
I think a lot of people do know, though. A lot of parents know that their kids are getting too many exams. But I agree. We can
but a lot of people think exams I think a lot of people's response will be, how else do we know if our kid's doing well? You know, a lot of people would also say that as much as they hate it. When I was a kid, I would have been like, so what's the alternative? You're telling me some kid that doesn't pay attention is going to get the same pass mark as me when I've worked so hard. And I think a lot of people would say, yeah, it sucks, but there's nothing else we can do. So this is, again, 1, I'd say. That's good. I think that's very good. I think that will resonate with a lot of people, a lot of kids and older people who remember what school's like for them. Even though, that's nostalgic almost, I think, for a lot of people. When I say to you, it hits because you're like, yeah, school sucked. And I think school sucks for a lot of people. And part of why school sucks is because at no point are you encouraged to be an individual.
How does this differ from individual interests?
That's it.
Okay.
Lack of play. I think that's a good one. That's understandable.
I think
this is the big doozy that is not intuitive, I think.
Okay, do you not think so?
I think that's the one that gets the most resistance, because I think a lot of teachers will be like, what are you talking about? Of course we teach people to question. That's our whole job. And maybe they're right, I just ain't seen it, bro. That's the only one. I think teaches you not to question. If we can word it in a way that's less insulting.
Spicy. I mean,
it's not that it's spicy.
It's facts. It's just maybe a bit abrasive.
It's very abrasive. Yeah. Can't believe I did that on camera. Yeah. Do it. No. Okay. Okay.
So something I was writing down was...
Should we Google it? Let's see what the sentiment is.
Okay. Why do we educate? What is the difference between learning and education?
What you doing? What? Oh,
question,
okay.
not a question.
Are you encouraged to question at school? So that's most of these articles are about how to encourage people to ask questions. So it's okay. So the Inspired Classroom says, okay. So they said when children get to a certain age, around 2 or 3, they start wanting to know why about what seems like every little thing. Why is the sky blue, Mommy? Why do I have to eat my vegetables? Why are you and Daddy still asleep? I want to go to the park at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. That seems very specific. Around this time, the child's cognitive abilities are rapidly developing. They are beginning to learn how to make mental connections between cause and effect and are eager to find out everything about how the world works, leading to often exacerbating number of questions for tired parents. However, as the child gets older, this level of constant questioning begins to subside until eventually the whys stop altogether. A study cited in an article for Newsweek found that on average, preschool children ask their parents around 100 questions a day, whereas middle school children comparatively ask very few questions. But to go back to the former inquisitive toddler self, why is this?
Go a quick pause. You could just give a quite utilitarian answer and say when you're younger you simply know less, more things are new to you. Yeah. And considering you're not constantly changing environments, you go to the same school, the same house.
People would say that. It's from the children, it's not because of an external factor. Okay. So why do we stop wanting to know why? According to the creator of the TED conference, in school, children are rewarded for having the right answer, for not for asking a good question. That's interesting, yeah. That's the thing. So one thing that's absolutely fundamental to the human experience is being wrong is seen as embarrassing. And that's why I think a lot of the older you get, your ability to feel embarrassment heightens.
I feel like embarrassment in a particular way where if I'm surrounded by people who I see myself as colleagues, and we're all, let's say, economists.
Mm-hmm.
If I then go, what is demand? You feel like you can't ask that question because so many other things are predicated on that.
You should know.
So fundamental.
Yeah, it's so basic.
So basic. How dare you ask something so so basic.
Yeah.
Makes you feel as if you're unknowledgeable, makes you feel stupid, makes you feel like you've not been listening. When demand is actually quite a complex thing.
Okay, this is interesting. With emphasis on memorization and testing, children quickly learn that in order to succeed in education, veering off on a tangent about any given subject is not worth their time or energy and may end up losing their marks. Yeah.
I've had that 100% happen to me. When you have like a paragraph to like, you have an answer and then you have to explain about it, and I'll just and then just like, stop doing this doesn't matter.
I did that at uni a lot.
Really?
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, because I used to have whole chunks. We used to have essays, and I used to have like ticks and in essays that we handed in for supervisions, and then there'd be huge sections where it would just be like not relevant. Where I'd just like paint a story, set the stage, and it was like, mate, you've just wasted 45 minutes and probably 3 days of research. But it was so much fun.
I've literally got question marks on my stuff before.
Yeah. Were we those kids?
Probably so annoying to mark.
Because from the teacher's perspective, you have a
checkbox.
You have an exam, a marker's sheet with a certain number of points, and if they're not covering those, then from your perspective, you're just wasting your own time and mine, because I have to read through all of this. Nonsense, and that's really boring for me, which is really sad. It's so sad.
I think there's a fundamental thing that how do we effectively navigate through the reality of doing and receiving, because they're two different things.
Yeah.
Right. If I wanna like punch you on your shoulder like good job, for me that feels good.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it feels like woohoo.
Yeah.
But for you it might feel like, oh, like what are you doing, like
that
get
hurt?
off me, or that that hurt or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very similar thing, especially in creative writing, where because I proofread a creative like some whatever thing, this book short story thing that a guy did, a German guy. It was in English, and he was having a great time writing this. It was written in Old English, and for me it was tedious and boring and lame.
What?
It wasn't interesting to me. The fact that he was using like there's nothing original happening in the scene. The fact that he was using Old English for him was a novelty because he's German, but to me it's like bad Shakespeare. So
would you say would it be accurate to say that you were at different levels? So a teacher marking a kid's work is boring. So what if you were on the same level marking each other's stuff?
That might be one thing.
So like I was thinking, so sometimes when I listen to you talk about stuff that it seems like you're teaching me, it's really exciting for me, because I think the way you tell it is really cool, and I'm like, oh my god, if I'd learned this in another way I would have been pretty bored, but because you've said it and you'll put on a little narrative or whatever, a little show, it's really cool. And so it could be something like that. It's like group work where you have one kid who learns about this topic and then has to teach all these other kids about that topic, and then these kids have learned this topic via that kid, of course with like observation, because this kid might be teaching them about like Grand Theft Auto or something. He's like, all right, boys.
So you gotta go square, circle, square, right trigger.
Yeah, so that sort of thing. It's a lot more fun because you get to, and then they can ask questions that tests his understanding, and that's also allows them to learn from that guy in the way that was intuitive to a person their own age. Whereas once you know something, you can't operate as if you didn't know that thing. So a teacher teaching kids who are on a completely different level is quite difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other day when I was teaching the girl
basic math,
I was like, I kept having to be like, no, you don't know this. Like, so go back. Do you know what this is? And I had to keep checking. No, okay. Now I'm operating on the assumption or the understanding that you don't know this, which means I have to change my explanation, right? But with kids, you just kind of don't know. That kid doesn't know. He knows just a bit more, but that's what he's there to do. He's there to share. And I think that could be quite cool.
I think one thing we could say is how can we make educating more fun? Because we've been focusing on the student, but not the teacher. And
I think that requires us to speak to... Because we've never been teachers, but we've been students.
All these things that you have to read through, and this is one day, and this one day is part of, a semester, and you've done, this many semesters.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood that this is original in the context of this?
Nothing.
It is almost impossible, right? Yeah. I remember when I was doing creative writing, and I was exploring with the idea of kind of like causality and how actions affect each other. And I said at the end, like, and so it's really interesting that how what I'm saying now is affecting you. And I was like, I remember I thought it was really cool. But then now, obviously, the coolness of that is diminished in some way. And when the teacher was reading, it's just like, obviously, or whatever.
Yeah, and that's another thing. The passion for it dies when you see someone older who's not passionate about it.
Yeah.
And also doesn't match your energy. Whereas if you have kids teaching kids, that's energy matching. He's like, no, you don't understand. Do you know what pi is? It's a number. And it's like, it's got an infinite number of... Do you know what that means? Eric, do you know what infinity looks like, pal? And he's like, no, mate, let me show you. Right? It's the energy matching, right? That guy was really excited. You read his stuff and you're like, oh. If someone who was on his same level of like English, which kind of defeats the purpose, but
the topic that he likes.
Yeah, and they read it because he's not writing for people like you.
Exactly.
He's writing for those guys. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's just finish this one. Let's see. Okay. They know that the examiners and teachers are looking for them to regurgitate the right kind of responses and will therefore stick to the prescribed syllabus. So what happened with Nadia? Where I was telling her stuff and she was like, this is not the right... Because my instinct was, you should get a better understanding of the thing you're studying, which at the moment was Christianity for RE. And she was like, I get that, but this is not the time. I've got like 3 days till my exam. And then she showed me the result or the examiner's sheet that they would be working off.
Oh, they get that?
I think she had like her teacher created a mock one, I guess.
Okay.
And I was thinking, oh my god, like as soon as I probed her about why, or it was so narrow and so strict.
That's one of the things, narrow.
Okay. So that's why you wouldn't ask a question, because what's the value? Because you feel like you're wasting your own time, everyone else's time, and the teacher's time. Okay.
I feel like we have more leeway there in the arts than in the sciences.
And I thought they were going to explain why
people ask questions less
as they age.
Yeah. And have they not said that?
Well, I don't know why, but I automatically went to she. Interesting.
The educational mother. Passing down language.
Mother teacher. I guess they're saying that because it's not rewarded by the system of exam results.
You realise that spending energy here doesn't get you anywhere.
So she hasn't said that it's not. Is it written by a man or a woman? Louise Blake. Shout out Louise.
Big L.
It's not because as you get older you know more stuff, which is definitely part of it. But you also realize how much you don't know. The older I get, the more I realize there's so much I don't know, and it's kind of scary. But it's also really exciting. Yeah. Again, from Gilmore Girls, when she goes to, there's an interesting moment where she goes to Harvard, I think, and just to visit, and she's reading the pamphlet, and it says how many books how many books are housed in a particular library, and she was like, I'm never going to be able to read all those books. Like, she has a panic attack because she puts pressure on knowing everything. She's like, she tries to do the math based on the rate at which she's been going. She's like, I've probably read like 400 books, and she's 16. So she's already really high performing anyway, and has like a bit of a panic attack, and she's like, there's so much. But yeah. Okay. All right. So
we didn't get the answer we were looking for.
Which was
what? Which is why people ask less questions, like, because our topic
why
is
do
very
people
spicy.
Yeah.
Right, we were saying that teaching you not to question is a spicy way of saying it.
Yeah.
Can we get a bit more precise on that? So what I wrote down.
So now we know why, or at least that's one. We can look at another one. So I thought part of it was, so everything's about that. I thought part of it was because there's an assumption that there's kids that ask questions, and there's a group of kids that don't ask questions and they're shy.
Yeah.
Like Eric. Or like nervous. Yeah. We have too many Erics in our life. We need to drop one. Well, one dropped himself from our life.
Yikes.
Eric. Which one? Do they say? So they make the assumption that as children get older, they tend to ask less and less questions, fewer and fewer. Oh my God. Is it less and, it's not less and less, it's fewer and fewer and fewer. I don't trust this article anymore. Next. Ed Week. Oh jeez. Collapse. It's terrible. Just put an X. So part of it's probably confidence. We do have to keep that.
So this is what I want to bring this up. I claim there's a difference between asking questions and questioning.
Oh yeah.
Asking questions is accepting the frame, accepting the paradigm, and exploring within that perspective.
Ah, okay.
Whereas questioning, I feel like, is trying to input certain things into the situation
that
lift switches
the ceteris paribus assumption.
What's that?
So in economics, something you learn, ceteris paribus is Latin for everything else remains constant. And so...
Sounds like a mathematical convenience type of thing.
It kind of is, but that's a lot of economics. But exactly, but you hold stuff constant. You take things as given, right? So if you lift that, all of a sudden everything's a moving part. But you're encouraged to ceteris paribus basically everything.
Okay.
Right? That's what I mean by that. And the idea that that's even possible is not in the realm of reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially on scale.
So then we kind of need to, if that's not being introduced to people, introduce that to people.
Because everything is an exchange. What's the exchange to questioning? It's going to slow the progression of the class.
Yeah.
Because if you have everyone just saying, this is what happened, everyone get it? Any questions? No? Okay, then we move on. But if you have a situation where it's like, this is what we're doing. And then the kid's
So
like,
it's not
what about
only-
this? What
it's
about
not
this?
only
I
why.
watched this. I watched a TikTok
Yeah.
last night.
Uh-huh.
You're expanding, but you're not pushing.
So I don't know if this is related, but it feels related in my head. You can tell me. So in How to Read a Book, he talks about how if you're reading a book, you can think about a book by itself without relation to anything else. Just like it's an internal consistency.
Fiction.
No, just everything.
I thought that was fiction. Like you measure how good it is based on.
But
how
philosophy as well and history is it consistent? Basically anything like logic as well. Internal consistency is all of logic. And then you could. So that's one type of reading, and then another type of reading of all books is comparing. So when you're trying to get an understanding, think about it in relation to other books, either that are similar or that are different. Right? So look at a particular treatise on philosophy and compare that to others that are either similar or different. Because philosophy is basically everything. Like it's basically been covered. All of it. From you shouldn't harm to you can harm. And compare a particular piece of work to other things. So you can ask why about a topic, and then you can talk about that topic in relation to other topics, and that can get people to question things like that. And I guess that's the binary tool, but other tools as well. But I'm not sure if it's related. It was the first thing that occurred to me when we were talking about stuff. But I think you're thinking about accepting versus rejecting a frame, or questioning a frame, I guess, not rejecting it completely, but removing that veil of acceptance and questioning the individual components.
I feel like.
But again, keep in mind we have a tendency, like sometimes you'll say something and I'm like, no, and you roll your eyes because you think it's such a given thing. Most people, and then I reason it, and sometimes you agree, other times you disagree, and that's fine. But it's a normal thing to accept things are so obvious that you should accept it. That's why even you, someone who questions so much, roll your eyes when sometimes I'm like, no, like why is that a given, right? So we have to keep that in mind.
And when we're talking to someone, so a similar situation to, let's say, a 10-year-old and a teacher, a similar dynamic is when the two of us are talking to Alexei, who is a quantum physicist theorist. No, he's an experimentalist.
He's an experimentalist.
And when he's explaining things, he'll say, take this as a given.
Yeah.
Him taking this presumption allows him to continue the narrative.
Yeah, otherwise we stop. Otherwise he has to take us to the theory, and that's just math at that point. Yeah.
Or he'll have to create a metaphor around this, and that's going to take some time. Exactly. And then just to get one step further, take it as a given, and we can get 2 steps further.
How difficult is that for you to do? Because for me, it's basically impossible. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I love taking as a given. I'm like, okay, let's keep going. I don't know where we are or who's next to me.
That's how we're different. Yeah.
You're like, I must dissect the every component of the ship must be known to me before I can assemble it.
Show me the
I'm
plank.
like, does it float? Let's go. And I think, so instead of, this is what I think happens a lot, especially in terms of disruptive. That's very hard. That's very common in technology. Disruptive technology. The idea is you're doing one thing that way. It's old. It's antiquated. Here's the new way. Clear the table of all that old stuff. This is how we're doing it now. I think that can sometimes work. I don't want to apply it to education here. Like, I don't want to undermine all these years of education. I want to say sometimes allowing students to question the frame itself has value.
Yeah.
And you can even strengthen the child's belief in the frame by allowing them to question it. Right? Sure, let's not do it this way. let's look at the stars in terms of what the Greeks said, and then how does that fare up? Maybe people like it and they go towards more arts and English and interpretation and metaphor. Maybe they don't like it and they go more towards science and astrology and astronomy. Another thing, everything has been asked. So something Sikandar said was, in terms of big questions like religion, these questions have been asked and tackled before.
Yeah.
It's both a waste and a big ego to be like, I'm going to start from the beginning, I'm going to figure this all out. At least start where your ancestors left off.
Yeah.
And I think visualizing society, the second thing, not education, or the third thing, and that can help with that. Everything has been asked before.
What do you mean everything has been asked before? I know what you mean, but I don't know how it, like, you ended. And I'm just a bit lost. So because, yeah, it would be egotistical of you to think that I'm going to reinvent society from scratch without looking at anything.
And the same, I think, the same feeling of when a kid is like, yeah, but why is red called red? Why don't we just call red blue, or something like that? Yeah. Like, yeah, that's true. However, having certain things laid out that, commonalities
that we agree on,
yeah, we can use that to then further our knowledge on top of that.
But
now we know the wavelength of different light and things like that, no matter what you call it. And then by mapping it out and showing it to them, being like, this is the lay of the land.
This is how we got here.
This is how we, and then that's a separate timeline. I think that needs to be part of education.
Oh, definitely. Like, where did this come from? I think that also will help with the answering of the why are we doing this?
Instead of just it's a challenging thing, because you can list things in two ways. You can say difficulty, this is the least difficult, this is more, etc., getting increasingly more difficult as we go down. And then you can say time, right? Timeline and discovery.
Yeah.
And then you say, this was the first thing, this was the second thing, this is the third thing, this is the fourth thing.
That usually coincides.
This is the first, and this is, whatever.
But I think that coincides.
And I think there is often miscongruence along it. If you scale out, I think it's probably roughly approximately the same thing, but it's not the same thing, would be my my presumption, my prediction. And I think that might be the resistance. That might be why you don't tell a kid about Pythagoras and who he was in mathematics. You start off with, this is 1, 2, 1 is 1 apple. You have 2 apples, it makes 2. As opposed, because that's not where math started.
But then you don't have to. You can tell them a story and tell them how we got 1. But that's while you're teaching them 1, 2, 3, 4. Because that's tangible. They understand it because they know this is 1 pen.
Exactly.
And what is this then? Oh, 1 plus 1. Oh, 1 plus 1. Now you've introduced addition. Now if I take 1 away, subtraction. They understand that. But alongside that, you can start introducing, because kids particularly respond very well to stories. And so you can start introducing the idea of Pythagoras. And then later on, when they're studying the Pythagorean theorem, they'll understand it.
Oh, it's that guy.
Right? It's that guy. It's that guy. This guy who's afraid of bees.
Shout out to all the human beings out there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. This is such a big topic.
It is.
It's so big. It's too wide. I'm just going to check my
lappy top, tip top.
Ooh. Are you?
Is it silky smooth operating system?
I think so. It's got the background. That's the bar at the bottom, I guess, is the test. I'm in the same position. I just need the phone, the trap phone.
And you got black pants on too.
Okay, let's just let that load. Okay. Do you want to spitball it? And then I'll try.
I'm looking forward. I've not heard of an Oreo spitball.
You have? I did the first spitball.
What? You are the...
What you talking about?
You are the spitball.
Yeet. No. Apple's asking me to share my audio recordings with them. Yeah, mate. Alright, so you can sell my data to Amazon?
Yep.
No thanks. Okay. You can do it, bro, see?
Thank you, Sister Me. The arrogance of me thinking I can read this without glasses.
I'm gonna go dark, or shall we go light? Let's do auto. No. The arrogance of you what? Okay, I'm gonna run up and pee.
Okay.
And you can...
I'll do a mock.
Do a mock. Sorry, guys.
Put it down gently.
Make sure I don't sit on it. No! Eh? Oh, yeah, because I have the disappearing ball. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I think
we're back online.
I think so.
Woohoo! Okay. So if you're made to wake up in the morning, get out of bed before you are ready, and someone pushes seeds in your hand, the chances of you actually putting those seeds in the ground in a way that you are, the chances of you being willing and enthusiastic in putting those seeds in the ground will be low. Okay? Why is that? I would argue because there's a lack of understanding there. You don't know why you're doing what you're doing, and the natural flow of your body, your natural circadian rhythm, your natural wants and needs are being disrupted for some kind of exterior discomfort. I think that is similar to the educational system. If you were to tell someone that these seeds actually will create bean sprouts that will go all the way up into the heavens, and that the sooner we start planting, the sooner we can get to to utopia, suddenly that individual might be up when you open the door. Suddenly that individual might be outside in the field planting the seeds before you even get up. That, I think, is the value of understanding. Something that is derived, something that is, what do you call it? Not derived, something that is withheld from us. Secondly, our educational system in the West is a updated system, a repurposed system of the education from the Victorian era. During the Victorian era, part of the reason why Britain was so successful, speaking from Manchester where the industrialization started, was because through industry and through individual worker specialization, are you ready for love? Yes, I am. Oh, yeah. Okay, I've got a narrative.
Narrative? Beautiful.
So I'm going to start again from the beginning.
Okay.
So if you were to wake someone up in the morning and push seeds into their hands, they wouldn't. The chances of them being enthusiastic about planting them are very low. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a similar situation with our education system, as they don't know why these actions are being done. The natural wants and needs of the individual, their natural circadian rhythm, are all being interrupted for this externality. However, if the kid was to, or if the individual was to be was told that these are actually magical bean sprouts, and the sooner we plant them, the sooner we can get a massive bean sprout that gets us to the heaven, there's a chance that when you open that door to wake them up, that they're already awake.
Or awake, yeah.
There's a chance that they're, while you're asleep, before you wake up, they're already in the field planting the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the value of teaching someone why something is happening, especially when it's a natural block to their natural wants and desires. Secondly, the educational system that we have right now is a rehashed, a repurposed method of the Victorian system of education. From Manchester, speaking from us in Manchester now, we're in the industrial era, and the main strength of the industrial era was factories with employees that specialize. That means you're waking up at a certain time and you're repeating a task over and over again until you're incredibly good at it, and then you're going home to do the same thing again. And this expectation of the workforce was put onto the children when they were growing up, making them able and ready to do that, to fill that role in society. That we're no longer living in an industrialized economy, but we lived in an economy where a lot of work comes from offices. And I think it's no coincidence that we are taught to sit down and problem solve for most of the day. The reality is that these jobs that were in the past, and more importantly, the jobs that will be created in the future, are different to the reality that education is preparing our children for. And so that's another way of saying that our educational system is simply outdated. And finally, because teachers have a position of power over students, they have a responsibility over the students, they're older, they're more mature, as well as a knowledge difference over the students, there is a tendency for the teacher to dictate a reality and a truth to the student. And a good student is one that can receive that information and retain it for as long as they need it. However, if you are able to incorporate the student into the path of knowledge, because it's learning something can be akin to a journey. You start from not knowing, but you have curiosity, and through trial and error and through different stimuli, you learn more and more about the subject. If that journey of knowledge can be more hands-on for the student, we believe that it will be more engaging, as the students will be part of the topic. That's the top three. Mm-hmm. Obviously very long and could be better, but not too bad.
So that's not for you to decide. Okay, no. I, first of all, love that you started off with a narrative. I think the example's really cool. And I think that it's fun, and it was a bit odd when it started, but I guess the surprise element is the best part about it. The fact that it's like seeds, magic beans.
You're on magic something.
I love that. Too long.
Yeah, too long.
Given. You go into way more detail than is necessary, in my opinion, because it's supposed to be short. No one's going to listen to this. People can literally walk away. Right. This is imagine if you're explaining this to Sai or Zainab, and they're like, so Mayo, what are you working on? And you went on a 20-minute spiel about we used to have a Victorian system, and now we work corporate jobs. They're going to be like, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Start scrolling quietly on their phones, right? But I love that you started off with a narrative, because when I was upstairs, I was thinking about how would I do it, and I didn't start off with a narrative. So how I would do it.
Go on, nice yoga.
Okay. I'm just going to look because I feel like this will inspire me. Okay. I believe that in Western countries, I believe that the fact that we have mass education, regardless of whether you can afford to pay for it or not, is one of the greatest achievements in human history. I feel like we're doing it wrong. That's the only problem. I feel like snatching a child out of their bed super early in the morning, taking them to a pretty dull place, which they, not explaining to them why they're there, making them do subjects that they don't want to be doing because they're draining, they're not fun, they're a lot of the time it doesn't resonate with that child. And covering topics that are quite dated or in a, I'm going to leave out dated, eliminate dated. And okay, I'm going to leave out hierarchies for now anyway. Just the experience that the child has removes their love for learning. And I think that can I start again?
Yeah, start again.
Okay.
I started twice. You were just upstairs.
I heard you. I didn't hear what you were saying though. Okay, so all right. So what I would do, all right, let me tell you, maybe you're better at like freestyling. I'm better with scripts. I would start off with saying the thing about, I think it's one of the greatest achievements. But I think that the way that we teach our children is that little kid looks exactly like Nadia. I think the way that we teach kids is outdated and not fit for purpose, but reword it because I don't really like that wording. And then I'd start painting a narrative, and then I'd paint the narrative of the child waking up really groggy, putting on a school uniform, so his individuality is completely stripped of him automatically, like there, symbolism. And then he's like going to school and he's still really tired and he's like completely out of it. Gets to school and he looks at his calendar and he's like, oh, maths, bloody hate maths, and has to go and sit in a classroom. He's looking at the clock. Those are the numbers he likes, and he's just like like really not down. And when someone tries to ask a question like, Miss, why are we doing this? Got calculators? And it's like, stop it, right? And then you can even have a depiction of someone in the school playground, and they're talking about stuff else because they don't talk about school. They'll talk about stuff outside the school curriculum, and maybe someone will talk about something that they saw, because kids spend a lot of time on the internet now, and you see more stuff, so they are aware of things, but they can't talk about them at school. So if they talk about, let's say, the idea of like, Miss, what is communism? And they're like, we don't want to talk about that. Like, we're not talking about this. So your ideas are like shut down.
About that. And then you get to ex-teacher and they're like, I don't know, or something like that.
Exactly. Like, oh, come back to me after class, and then you either forget to go, or if you do go, they're like, oh, sorry, I don't have time for this. So you could have that whole thing where you literally show the child's experience at school, And you could even do it as they age, and it becomes even more dull because they realize that exams are coming. It's like, you're wasting your time. Do you understand? You've got exams around the corner, 2 weeks away, right? Yeah. And then you could show the child who plays, and then them being like sectioned off in a classroom, and they're looking outside at the kids playing, like, oh, what once was, and they can't do that anymore. And then, okay, what's our solution? One, give them an understanding of why they're there in the first place, right? Secondly, we find out. I think before we give the script, we have to know what the relevant subjects are today. Say in the 1960s, like that's what I did with the Swap Shop script. I looked at how many clothes people were wearing in 2000 compared to, so then you can give stats like, we're wearing clothes for half as long, or we're buying twice as much and using them for half as long, and that's pretty significant, right? Incorporate students into a topic, and then games. But yeah, that's how I'd do it. If I was doing the narrative, I'd show the kid.
You don't think that's too long? There's no way that's going to be... Sai's going to be...
Oh, if I was doing it to Sai...
Okay, so who's that to?
That would be the animation for this.
So that's to 15 to 30-year-olds or something like that? Or
younger, even. Okay. It depends. I think 5 plus. 5, Arman. They might not get it. We can show it to Arman. Maybe he does get it. Maybe, but he doesn't know what he has, and that might scare him. What's to come? But he might, because his school's already quite less play, more study. So if I was giving it to Sai, I'd be like, education. I think we can all agree that education is very important for children, especially children. Education's important, but especially for children. I just think that the way that it's done right now could be better. I think that I think learning in schools is quite draining. It's dated. Kids don't know why they're there. Individuality is not encouraged. It's not catered for or encouraged. And as you age, there's a shift away from play to study, and there's a very clear distinction made between the two for some reason, but we're not explained. We don't understand why, right? And I think that I want to do something about it. And so one thing I would do is give the student an understanding of why they're learning, why they're there in the first place. Another thing we can do is, because education's quite dated, it's not really fit for purpose, because we're using a system that might have been designed in the 1960s, but in the 1960s we were doing these jobs. Today we're doing these jobs, and I don't think, if you can't cater for a job that didn't exist with the same system, it's not working. You pick up those skills outside of school, and I think that that's interesting, because originally, if education was designed to help people get jobs, then why aren't we teaching them how to get the jobs of today? Why are we teaching them?
Could we go on the .gov website and see what is the objective of school
today? Yeah.
Like, where's my phone?
The purpose of education. So education reform is the great social justice cause of our times. If we are to deliver a fairer society in which opportunity is shared more widely, we must secure the highest standards of education for all young people, regardless of their background. But this is talking about proper education. But what's education for? Hold on, let me skip forward. Okay. Education is the engine of our economy.
What? Big claim.
It's the foundation of our culture, and it's an essential preparation for adult life.
Making a lot of claims here.
Would you agree with those claims? I think those
not
claims...
entirely. I think if you're going to use a metaphor, engine isn't the right one, for one. Second, I think, like...
You don't think so?
Engine?
Not back in the day.
Engine?
Like it's the main component.
I would say it's industry.
Industry?
Yeah.
What do you mean? How do people get into industry?
You train them.
That's education. That's not school education.
Exactly, it's not school.
But that's education.
But I'm talking about school.
Okay, they're just talking about education.
Because the reason I said it was because the question that came in my head was...
It's still industry today, even though services are the...
No, not... what was it? He was saying, what is... people are learning those skills outside... Because the school doesn't cater to the new jobs, people are learning these things outside of school.
Yeah.
And that made me think, what is the purpose of school in your opinion? Maybe it shouldn't be that all-encompassing. Right? Because the argument is, school shouldn't teach you about taxes. School shouldn't teach you about certain manners. School shouldn't teach you about this and that. That's the role of your parents.
But it's saying that it's the engine of our economy. What does that mean? It means you're teaching people skills so that they can work.
Mm-hmm.
So they do believe that. But if that's what they believe, then they're failing there if they're not incorporating new subjects that are more relevant to jobs today.
The second claim, it's was it fundamental something of culture?
It's the foundation of our culture.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I disagree, but I never saw it like that.
I think that culture's massively left out of education to a large extent.
I think it's because it's left out, it ends up being strangely woven into subjects. Like culture is woven into history. But they're not telling you that it is. They're just the choice of what's being taught, the narratives that are perpetuated.
Mm-hmm. Like, what is British culture? We're not really taught that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by it's really left out. And it's kind of abstract and obscure and take it as a given. Whereas part of culture is like art, and that's not a mandatory subject. That's like, look at the mandatory subjects, and that tells you what the purpose of education is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I don't think it's... I think this is... You have to keep in mind, this is the government website, and so they have to paint it as
I've got the Gov website.
Okay.
Today, though, purpose of education, www.gov.uk.
Yeah, that's the one I'm reading.
Purpose of education?
Yeah. Today, though, I would like to take a step back. Yeah, that's what I read. It's the second paragraph. Education is the engine of our economy.
So the thing that came up was the third paragraph. We all have a responsibility to educate the next generation of informed citizens, introducing them to the best. That
has been taught.
To the best that has been thought and said, and instilling in them a love of knowledge and culture.
Exactly.
For their own sake.
Exactly, but we don't.
Mm-hmm.
If they
there we go. Got him.
Got him. Wrap it up. Okay, there you go. Then, if it's for the love of knowledge, see, no one believes that. So the government says one thing, but no one believes that. If you ask most people, we should ask. Let's go out on the streets and ask people, what do you think the purpose of education is?
Mm-hmm. Get the mic.
Get the mic out, and we can do that next week. We can do that on Monday. We can go and ask. What do you believe the purpose of education is?
Mm-hmm.
And we can say, what do you, and we can even ask them, do you think that they're doing a good job? Or do you think schools do a good job? then we can get a whole range of responses.
What's the role of schools? Thinking about education.
What's the purpose of education?
And then we'll give a quote from here.
The government, yeah, we can read to them what they think.
Based on their A, do you agree with the criteria?
Yeah.
And B, based on their criteria, do you think they're doing a good job?
They're doing a good job. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a great video. Beautiful. Yeah. And we can see what the sentiment is, and then we can say that from the people we've spoken to, people broadly agree, or people disagree with us. But so then we can go from saying we to us, like us, not the collective we. The scaled in we. Yeah. But yeah, I think if I was explaining it to people, I would say that, in my opinion, I feel like education is so incredibly important, but because it's so important, there's a responsibility amongst all of us to make sure that education is fit for purpose. And I think right now it isn't. I think that education is delivered in a way that's boring. It's quite dated. In schools, kids don't understand why they go to schools. They don't know why they learn particular things. They're not really encouraged to ask questions because there's a lot of focus on exam results. And so if you are the type of person that asks questions, it can be seen as being disruptive to the flow of the lesson. And I think that there are so many important things, important topics that are left out. For example, hierarchies, the validity of them. For example, economic structures. Just things that we're expected to take as a given. And so I would like to do something about it because it's very close to my heart. And the first thing I would do is try to give children an understanding of why they go to school and why they learn particular topics. Another thing that I would do is try to incorporate children or try to incorporate kids into a subject and allow them to explore it with the assistance of a teacher rather than just telling them that something is. I was doing pretty well.
Incorporate, yeah, that was incorporate. I mean, they're the main ones. We only want to do.
Yeah.
We only want to do the T's, right?
Yeah, and I think another thing I would do is I would try to make learning more fun so people don't lose their love for learning, because I think that happens to a lot of people. And one way to do it is to gamify it. To encourage kids to play games while learning, because people like to play games, but people hate going to school. So if I was talking to Sai, now I get a better understanding of the education thing, I think. But that's quite boring for a video. It's been said before. People understand it on some level. I think if I were to do it in a video, I do the narrative. I do the kid in school. I do the kid growing up. And I think that could be fun. That animation could be really fun to make. Thoughts?
I prefer the magic beans, I'm not going to lie.
But you could do the magic bean example when you're talking about the solutions. So when you're saying, when you're talking about...
Have you just brought this together?
I have. When you're talking about give the kids an understanding of why they're there, and you can say, now let me ask you, if I woke you up at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, here are some seeds, go out and plant them, and you'll find out what they are in 18 years. You're going to tell me to F myself, right? You're going to take away my keys.
You're going to eat the seeds.
Exactly, or throw them at me. And then I'm like, no, bro, you don't understand. These are magic beans. It's the gateway to everything. Now, whether you believe me or not, that's also an interesting thing, but we don't have to cover it here. whether you, you're gonna have a better understanding of why I'm sending you out, and why are we doing it at 6 o'clock in the morning? Well, because you're protected from the sun, right? And also that gives you something to do. You can explain to kids the reason you're here at this time is because your parents have to work, right? So it's an act of convenience. At least being honest with them is rather than no, this is optimal for kids. This is beautiful. This is all the research suggests that 7 o'clock in the morning is absolutely perfect. Like panicking, no, it's not. Let's just be honest. Convenience is important.
Yeah. Accept it. That's the thing about awareness and acceptance.
Exactly. At least don't lie to them, because if you lie to them and they know it, when this guy says that it's the foundation for culture, I'm like, everything else you've said has less validity because you are lying. You're fluffing stuff up for no reason. No one believes this. None of this. I don't believe it. Other people might. I just don't. And instantly, you seem like a liar. And so I step back and I'm like, everything you say, I will now take with a pinch of salt. So yeah, honesty is important. So yeah.
Mate, if nothing else, we know what we're going to do on Monday.
Yep. I think we have a better understanding of how we can come up with loads of animations. We can create storyboards and see if something looks cool, like a miniature comic book, and see if we can come up with a good animation for this.
So apparently there's an AI where you draw things, and each individual, it's quite basic though at the moment, but each individual color is a thing. So brown is trees, green is grass, blue is sky, that thing. And you draw. It's kind of like MS Paint, just really crude. And then you click generate, and it creates a picture based on that.
That's cool.
It either pulls it from the internet or it just makes it up through deep learning AI. So in the future, when people say, "Oh, all this thing's going to take our jobs," it's kind of like saying, the camera took painters' jobs. Like, there's probably a correlation between that, right? Fewer people are going to get a portrait painted of them; they'll just get a photo taken of them. So there is definitely that correlation.
But you can create new systems as a result
of the camera. And so imagine if we made that storyboard and then we click generate, and it turned into something that wasn't our little scribbles. It was something that looked a lot more appealing and a lot clearer. Nice.
What happened? Dead leg.
Bit of a dead leg.
Dead leg.
Sticky tits. Sticky. How long was that? 1 hour.
Is that it?
Time fine. Time flies.
Bye, guys.
We're getting closer. We're narrowing it down. And as we get better at explaining it to other people, we get a better understanding of 100%. What it is. And I think it's awesome that PSI requires a target, requires someone to talk to. Because then we have the one thing, and we know how to say it to Helen, Sai, Aman, Sakanda, and then that kind of fleshes out the concept. And shows the vulnerabilities and the strengths and things that we thought are cool, but no one cares about, or things that we thought were just a passing comment, but people focus on it.
Exactly. Bye.